All right, Chapter 8. What we're going to learn in the first lesson, 8.1, is how to simplify a problem that has exponents. Okay? So, first of all, before we do that, there's three types of properties that we're going to use today. And the reason why I basically give you this information is so that when you see these words in your book, like when it pertains to homework and things like that, you know what they're talking about. Okay? Product of powers property means add the exponents. Power of a power property means multiply the exponents. And power of a product property means find the power of each factor and multiply it. And you say, okay, those don't make sense to me at all. Once we actually get into them and start working them, they will. Okay, so just remember this. Add the exponents, multiply the exponents, and find the power of each factor and multiply. Okay, so the first one, the product of powers, when they're talking about us adding exponents, what you're going to do here is I have 5 to the third power times 5 to the 6th. And I know I can plug that in my calculator, and I can solve, and I can find out exactly what my answer is going to be. But what they want us to do is they want us to simplify this. Because I know that since I have 5 to the third and 5 to the 6th, I have the same base. These numbers here are called bases. And these numbers right here are called my exponents, okay? Since I have the same base, what I can do is I can just write it once. I do not want to multiply the 5s together. I want to leave it as 5, and then I can just add the exponents. 3 plus 6 is 9, and I get 5 to the 9th power, which I'm going to solve this. So I want to now get out my calculator and plug it in. But what I want to see first is that you understand what to do to simplify. So I plug in my calculator, 5 to the 9th power, which is 1,953,125. 1,953,125. Okay, so that's how I would do that. Now, let's look at this next problem here. I have negative 2 times negative 2 to the 4th power. First of all, anytime you see a number, but it does not have an exponent, all right, it is an understood 1 right here. So again, I have the same basis, negative 2 and negative 2. So I can just write that as negative 2. And I'm going to write it to add my exponents together, 5th power. So when I have the same bases and they're being multiplied, see, 5 and 5 were being multiplied. Negative 2 times negative 2, those are all being multiplied. I can just add the exponents. Now, whenever you plug this in your calculator, you have to put the negative 2 in parentheses or it will not give you the right answer. Okay, so I'm going to do parentheses, negative 2, and then put my in parentheses, and then do that to the 5th power. And that's going to give me negative 32. Again, I need to see this step in order to make sure you're doing it right. Okay, now let's look at here. Let's look at our bases. X, X, and X. They're all the same. Are all the bases being multiplied? Yes, they are. So I can just write it one time and add my exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 4 is 9. Now, I do not want you to sit there and write x 9 different times because I understand, obviously, that means x to the 9th power. Anytime you can simplify an actual number, like in the last example we had negative 2 to the 5th power equals negative 32, that's what I want you to do. But when it's a variable, there's no further way to simplify it. This would be my final answer. Okay, so example 2. Now I have a power of a power, which means multiply the exponents, okay? Basically what I have here is I've got 2 exponents being multiplied together, because what this means is they want us to just multiply that. I keep my same base. Nothing changes with that. 3 times 2 is 6. Just do not add. Don't forget, this is different. And then I'm going to plug in 3 to the 6th power on my calculator, and I get 729. So this is my final answer here. Okay, let's look at this next one. What am I going to do with the exponents? Multiplication. I keep my base, and I've got p to the 16th power. Again, I do not want you to write 16 p's out. Just leave it as p to the 16th power. Okay, in example 3, we have a power of a product. Now, the easiest way for me to tell you to do this is to multiply together what is inside of parentheses. Okay, what's negative 6 times 5? Negative 30. Again, keep that in parentheses, and now I have negative 30 squared. That's the easiest way to do these, if you ask me. The book teaches it different. The book teaches that you need to distribute this 2 to everything and then find out what that is and then multiply it. But I think this is much faster and much easier if you just multiply what's inside of parentheses and then do whatever the exponent says. So again, you want to make sure you use parentheses whenever you type it in your calculator, because if you don't, it's not going to give you the right answer, because my answer will be positive 900. But if I type this in the calculator like this, my calculator is going to tell me my answer is negative 900, and that is not correct. So make sure you use parentheses. Okay? Now, this is the type of problem that the book is more talking about. I've got to, anytime there's an exponent on the outside of parentheses, what I need to do is I need to distribute it to everything on the inside. Now, the reason why we were able to do the first one different is because I've got two numbers that can be multiplied together. So I just simplify that first. But in this example right here, 4 times y times z, there's nothing else I can do to simplify that. So I just have to distribute this exponent. That means it's going to be 4 to the third power times y to the third power times z to the third power. The only thing here I can simplify is 4 to the third power. So I need to plug that in my calculator, and I get 64 y to the third power z to the third power. And that would be my answer. Okay, so for our final example, they're going to give us something where we have to put all three of these together, all three of these properties that we've learned together, and use them. Okay, so let's look for our first step here. Well, I've got this exponent on the outside of parentheses. I cannot simplify 4x squared because I can't multiply them together. So that means this needs to be distributed to everything. So I'm going to get 4 to the third power times x to the what? What would I do with those exponents? Well, since it's being distributed, that means multiplication, so I multiply. And then I've got x to the 6th times x to the 5th, okay? I've got the same bases now, and they're being multiplied. So what does that mean I do to their exponents? Add them. So I get 4 to the third power. I write my x one time, and then I say 6 plus 5 is 11. Now the only thing I can simplify here is this 4 to the third. So I type it in my calculator, and I get 64 x to the 11th power. Okay, do you see how we used all three properties to simplify? All right, let's do this next one the exact same way. So what I want to do is I want to take this 2, since it's on the outside of parentheses, and distribute it to everything. So I'm going to get 3 squared times x to the 6th times x to the 3rd. Now I see I have the same bases. So what I do is I write 3 squared times x to the 9th power. And I know that 3 squared is 9, so 9x to the 9th power would be my answer there. Okay, so that's how we're going to simplify our problems that are using exponents.